How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be finishing up the week here. For the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling, it's probably one of the busiest news days that we've had, mainly because of one story, and that is that this has been building, as of a week from Monday, the 26th, there will be no more wrestling on the Superstation, on TBS or TNT. The Fusion deal is basically dead. It's not... you could say it's alive, but it would be a different deal. The deal to buy the company is dead because Jamie Kellner would not promise in the contract a guarantee that wrestling would continue in 2 primetime time slots per week. I think that there had been a decision made, not a final decision, but there had certainly been talk about Thunder being canceled. We'd written about this a long time ago. And that could have been a deal breaker, but that was all made before Jamie Kellner was involved or took over, which was just about a week ago, as the head of all programming for all of the Turner Time Warner networks, which includes WB, TNT, TBS. And he would not make a commitment to for long term for any wrestling. There was at some point talk, just a couple of days ago actually, that the WB network would pick up one primetime show and that TBS and TNT would cancel. I don't know what Fusion's thoughts on that one were, but ultimately that was not, guaranteed in the contract either. And there was really nothing, without the guarantees of television time, there was nothing for Fusion to buy, realistically. Other than the name WCW, whatever that's worth, it's not worth that much. They are actually still in negotiations to buy the name WCW, as is WWF in negotiations to buy the name WCW, for the idea that if they owned the name, they could, do some marketing and, both sides could use it as a springboard for, whatever they have, but the actual organization itself, contracts and all that, unless they are sold to a third party, and there may be people coming out of the woodwork for this one, although I don't know about that. There is a possibility the company, but what would you be buying? So what investment would it be? You'd be buying the contracts of wrestlers with no guarantee of television time. Bischoff is still, and Fusion are still looking to be in the wrestling business, but it would not be. They would have to basically start their own company from scratch, and maybe use the WCW name if it was being sold for a small enough price. But that's not necessarily the case either. It was very, very close, as late as Wednesday, to a final deal. And that was basically the deal breaker. And they couldn't buy it under those circumstances. And it was a new guy involved in negotiations who was not in the original negotiations. And that's the story of wrestling.
So basically, if Siegel had still been involved and they would have bought the company with the time slots and had it in the contract,
you're guaranteeing them for a number of years.
Contract couldn't have been, canceled out or whatever by like a switchover.
What do you mean?
I assume.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying.
Okay, if Siegel were replaced, his replacement, whoever that could be, if they'd already signed the contract, couldn't have done anything, right?
If the contract had been, it's not so much Siegel, but if the contract had been signed 2 weeks ago, because Kellner took over. Was it like Tuesday of last week?
Yeah, something like that.
It was Kellner took over basically the day Tuesday. It was the day before I was in Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles the day that happened. It was the day we took the show off. So it was like a week ago. If the contract had been signed before that, and the contract had guaranteed them, primetime shows for say the next several years on those stations, yeah, the deal probably would have gone through.
So basically,
if the contract had been signed before, it would have been a done deal, and yeah, it's all timing. You got a guy who, for whatever reason, whether it be the prestige of the network, whether it be the declining ratings of wrestling, not any product knowledge of wrestling, knowing that it goes ups and downs, or just plain not caring because they don't want wrestling on their station. It's not that huge of a ratings thing, and you got to remember, Ted Turner doesn't have big power anymore. That was the guy who always saved wrestling. Wrestling was, to say it would never have been gone. As with Turner on the thing, you can never say never, but it probably never would have been because it was in worse shape many times. It wasn't in worse shape as far as financial losses, but in worse shape as far as ratings, attendance, and things like that. And at other times, and Turner always saved it. But this time, Turner couldn't save it. I mean, that was the one thing months and months ago when the word was out that they were putting it for sale. A lot of people thought, when push comes to shove, Turner is testing the waters. He's really never going to sell it. It built his station. It's the flagship of the station, that and the Atlanta Braves. And the bottom line was Turner did not have the power at that point anymore to stop the sale because he was no longer the man in charge.
Yeah. I mean, as far as, if they don't have the TV slots, I don't see the point of continuing negotiations at all. I mean,
well, that's why they're not.
Well, I mean, for any company to even want the name WCW right now, I don't even see the point of it. I mean, it's been, it's just been so badly damaged that I really don't see the point. I don't see any upside to having the name WCW and starting over from scratch, especially with no TV.
Well, Press, but if you can get TV somewhere else, I think that's the idea. Is that for Fusion, it would still be a name brand. It's kind of like I don't know. If you buy a defunct name of a title of a magazine, okay, you know what I mean? It's like it sort of has let's say Sport Magazine was a very popular magazine. Of course, it lost so much popularity, but it's probably not a good analogy. But in a magazine that, say, folded, and you bring back the magazine under the same name, even though it's new ownership, even after it's folded, there is sort of a thing Sport Magazine's coming back. You know what I mean?
But what if the magazine had the stigma of being horrible?
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. You're right about that. But the one thing is that WCW does have a name brand internationally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where the stigma isn't that strong that it's horrible, and you can sell. One of the things where theoretically, if a Fox, because that's really it's really, to me, it's do or die as far as another company. Because you can't compete unless you've got national TV.
Yeah.
And Fox is the one because it's got worldwide, it's got worldwide stations basically, between the Sky and all that. And the one thing with with Murdoch and everything like that, and the News Corp and everything like that, it's a big enough company, and wrestling done well. The one thing wrestling has done well that even many of the major sports in North America don't have is it has the opportunity to be very, very popular almost anywhere. It translates very well into every culture. Like WWF is on in, whatever number of countries it is. It's very popular all over the world, and wrestling has always been. And American wrestling has one advantage over Japanese wrestling in that, for whatever reason, a Japanese wrestling product really doesn't play well, except in Oriental countries because of the, whereas an American product, just because of the American faces and stuff, does play well all over the world. I think people look, just like a hit television show in the United States, whatever a hit television show, like Baywatch or whatever, because that was like a big international hit, or Dallas way back when. I mean, that thing was huge all over the world, whereas whatever the number one television show is in Japan right now, and I have no idea what it is, outside of Japan, nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
They just don't or Japanese movies don't come here, but our American movies go everywhere. And it's the same thing. And that is the one thing that of course it's got to be a good product. It's got to have marketable guys. Some Mickey Mouse product, in all these countries, it's not going to get any attention because they got the WWF. You got to have a competitive product. That's way easier said than done.
Yeah.
But
I'm kind of going back and forth on whether I would prefer WWF to buy the name and just some of the top guys to do the interpromotional angle and then absorb them, because the bad thing would be obviously you'd have the monopoly, and but the other way I'm looking at it,
you're gonna have it either way.
Yeah, you can have it either way, but the other way I'm looking at it is if you're going to have a monopoly either way, you might as well have WWF buy it, do the interpromotional angle for the month or whatever that Vince can handle it before he absorbs everybody, make some money, and then everybody that was not purchased, they're still going to be free agents, and if someone else wants to start up, there's a bunch of guys there to get. The only problem is you wouldn't have the top guys like Goldberg available because they'd all be under WWF contract.
I think... for the long term of wrestling, it would be better if the Goldbergs,
we're still free.
Are free agents, so somebody could use them as building blocks for a new company, especially Goldberg more than anyone.
Yeah.
The Hogan name is a big one in this, is a big pawn in this one. And the other big name is the Goldberg name because, again, that's a name that the big television executives know. And it means something because you got all that media publicity. And if you go, well, we got Hulk Hogan and Bill Goldberg, it'll mean a whole lot more than saying we've got anybody else. I mean, whether you say Kevin Nash or Scott Steiner, those names mean nothing.
Mm-hmm. Now, how would the legalities work as far as after the 26th? I assume that the company would just keep the guys under contract and not run any TV or any events or anything, right?
For right now, while they're in the process of selling, yeah, because if they think that they can sell it to someone else who comes out of the woodwork, no one's going to, here's the thing. Without the guarantee of television, all these names mean nothing.
Yeah.
You can only sell it directly to a television station because any middleman, unless he's got guaranteed television, having all those names, there's just nothing. You're not buying anything other than a bunch of expensive contracts.
Yeah.
Because if you got to go and pay for your TV time too, there is no way.
And I don't really want to compare like the WCW guys to the ECW guys or anything like that. But if you look at if a company were thinking, well, we'll buy all this talent and just tour. If you look at like the shows that these former ECW guys are working right now, they don't draw. I mean, you're not gonna buy all these names and think you'll just do touring and make some money off it. It's not going to work.
Not without television.
No. There's no way.
And even with television, there's no guarantee. I mean, the only guy, for the last couple of years, the only guy who's made any money touring is Vince.
Yeah.
The cost of touring has gone way, way up. I mean, I don't know what the break-even is for a WWF show. And I don't know what the break-even would be for a WCW show, but I'm thinking it's probably, a couple $100,000 now a night. It's not like it's, $20,000. I mean, between the planes and just everything, the fact that you got to do, the state of the art with the pyro and everything. You can't do, hold a little light bulb above the ring like you could do in the old days and do a cheap wrestling show because, you could do it, but no one will ever come back.
Yeah. I mean, the whole problem right now, I think, with any other company trying to start up is that the WWF has set the standard so high that...
So expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, even if you can't compete, you have to at least come close. Or at least, you have to make it look like you are competing. And right now, how can you do that without so much money?
You can't do it without so much money because the WWF spends so much money.
I mean, look at the whole problem. I mean, everyone's talking about XFL. Well, it's minor league football. It's just like anything else would be minor league wrestling.
Yeah.
Unless you had a billionaire behind it.
Well, I mean, the XFL is basically the ECW without the cult. Well, I would say I don't want to say without the cult following because the XFL does draw well in some markets they draw very well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the basic ECW. It's a whole bunch of new ideas, some of which are good, some of which are bad. But ultimately, the average sports fan, or television fan or whatever it is, just doesn't have any interest in the product.
Yeah.
Because it's not the big one. Just like the average casual wrestling fan, like my friends who are wrestling fans, they were aware of ECW, but they never had any interest in it. When it was on Friday night on TNN, I mean, if they were sitting there at my house watching it, they would enjoy it. It's not like they didn't like it, but they would never watch it on their own, and they didn't really care about it. Whereas, Monday Night Raw, if it's not football season, they'll watch it. If it's football season, if it's a bad game, they'll watch it. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that you consider doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get your TV ratings is from those people, not people like us. I mean, if it was people like us, there would be, many, many different wrestling companies going around, and they would all be thriving like Japan had, when Japan really had the business hot, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, and there were just dozens, now they've got all those companies, but they're not thriving. But there was a period where, I'm thinking like 94, 95, 96, where you had, it was so great in Japan where you had all the different styles. You had the lucha, with Michinoku Pro doing, being well. You had the hardcore with the FMW. You had All Japan with its style. You had New Japan with its style. You had the rings and the UWFI. You know what I mean? It was basically something for everyone and something that casual fans knew about and the hardcore fans. I mean, they had nothing to complain about because anyone who, didn't like one style.
If you were impressed with one thing, you could find something else.
That's right. I always say that about the situation now, but now, I mean, if you're really a strong fan and you complain, I go, you still can find tapes because there is every style out there, but it ain't going to be in this country.
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Now it's tapes. I mean, it's like there's one alternative, and it's this, I enjoyed SmackDown last night. I mean, it wasn't as good as Raw, but I really enjoyed the WF product. There's things that really entertain me. I mean, Regal last night, when he did that line about, I need an interpreter. You know what I mean? When they were doing the two accents. I mean, that was really, really funny. Just unintentional funny things.
Is just awesome.
What?
They're top of the card. I mean, it wasn't even like
another excellent main event.
Yeah.
Austin Angle. You know what? Austin was. I mean, we all know how good Angle is. I was watching Austin, real close in that match. He is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The two guys. I gotta say this. I don't know what it is about Austin and Rock and why people knock their ability, and they're not the two best workers in the business. They're the two most over guys in the business. But they're not Hulk Hogan, and they're not like Roddy Piper and WCW or Sting or something. I mean, these guys have great matches all the time, and it's not the other guy always carrying them. And I know Rock's offense is basically just punch, 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 but he's got great timing.
It doesn't matter though. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah, he has great matches. Yeah, he doesn't put his body at risk. Blah blah blah. I mean, I know Rock's not the greatest worker in the world, but he's a damn good worker. And Austin, for all the injuries the guy has, he's 36 years old. He's got millions of dollars, although not as many millions as before because of the divorce. But he's got millions of dollars in the bank. He's over whether he works hard or not. I mean, I give him credit for that match last night.
One thing about Austin, too, is, you see a lot of wrestlers that have never been injured that are still hesitant in the ring. And this guy broke his neck, and he's not afraid of anything.
Yeah,
taking those overhead suplexes from Angle. I cringe every time. And I'm sitting at home on a couch, millions of miles away or whatever, and this guy's in the ring taking these things with, he just had neck surgery.
I know.
It's incredible.
And the thing is with the guy, you got to remember, this is a guy, he's Steve Austin, and he could just say, no, Kurt, I got a bad neck.
Yeah.
We can do this and this, you can punch and kick me, So, mm-hmm. I got to give, for work rate, and for desire, and for the ability to put on a good show. Here's a guy, remember when he came back? He could have come back and been Hogan, and he still was going to main event with Rock, and they were still going to do however many 100,000 buys, 700,000, 800,000 buys, 900,000 buys they're going to do at WrestleMania. Whether he worked super hard or not, because the name was so strong and the match was so strong, but he came back, and, you go pay to see Austin, you get your money's worth.
Yeah.
So, Jerry Lawler will be on Power Pro Wrestling tomorrow, which is very intriguing because, I gotta find out a little bit more about that one. WWF did not really want him on that show a week ago. They may have changed. It wasn't like a major thing like they went and told, Randy Hales. Maybe I don't know, maybe they did. But I was under the impression that they didn't really want Lawler on those TVs, and he's going to be on. So, whatever it is, maybe he'll shoot an angle. Who knows? Who knows what's going on in the history of wrestling? They've been a pivotal. It's not even a word. It's been a very pivotal short period. Let me see.
I can't even. We're talking about this, and I think that we should have been preparing for a long time, and probably we sort of have. But
what are you talking about?
I don't even know. I kind of get it, but for some reason, I just see on April, whatever it's going to be, April 2nd.
April 2nd. There's one wrestling show on Monday night.
And there's no Thunder on Wednesday, and it's just like.
And there's no pay-per-view. There's
not going to be a pay-per-view.
I'm going to have more time to watch indie tapes, guys. No, I'm going to have more time to watch Japanese tapes. What?
No.
Yeah, I know. But I'll tell you what, for the overall popularity of wrestling, this is a total disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Even though WCW was a really bad organization the last couple of years, and economically they deserve to die. That's the reality, and it shouldn't come as a surprise if you don't lose that kind of money. But yeah, I guess as I said, April the 2nd, there's no more Nitro. And, I can't say 100% it's not coming back, but it looks 95, 98% that it's not coming back. Brad Siegel's going to have a meeting, I think it is on the 27th with the staff. But he's not going to, I don't know what he's going to say, explaining what this really all means. We've talked about basically all the speculation and all the stuff that's out there. It's probably about as much as anything is out there. It's basically all the news that is out there. If you guys want to call up, you can call us at 1-877-392-3299, and we'll be talking about this. We're going to play the Vince McMahon, Bob Costas, the stuff on the XFL when we come back from the break. Real quick, I want to give the poll results from last night. What did you think of Vince McMahon on Off the Record? Very good, 11%. good 13%, bad 10%, very bad 19%. Didn't see the show 47%, so it was somewhat of a mixed reaction, which, I don't know, I guess I am surprised. For many reasons. This is today's question, actually for the entire weekend. What best describes your thoughts of where wrestling will be in 1 year? That's what we've been talking about for a while. It's a similar question, rephrased a little bit, but the reality and the bottom line is that we know a lot more today than we knew 2 days ago, or a week ago, the last time the question was asked. A, WWF will be the only game in town. B, someone will buy WCW and make a go of it. C, someone will open up a new major company and make a go of it. D, UFC or a mixed martial arts group will become a real player. And E, many will try, but ultimately they will fail. I'll tell you, this is it's going to be quite a year. Between all the economic problems of the country, which is another issue, because it's going to be really hard to get...
Vince.
Oh,
whoa!
Sorry, that was Bob Costas. He was interrupting. But no, between all of the what?
He always does.
that show was on the sports talk stations here yesterday in San Francisco for 5 hours. That was the lead topic of conversation.
Huh.
The Costas interview with Vince.
I'm not really that surprised, actually.
Yeah. Well, for a lot of reasons. I mean, I'll tell you, before we go on with the thing, it was one thing, and it was bad, and it was real bad, when Jim Ross on Monday did that XFL speech.
Oh, no.
What do you mean, oh, no?
Taz!
When Taz and Michael Cole did, at least Jim Ross has the credibility of being an XFL announcer, of someone who, whether other people know it or not, is a very knowledgeable football person, and there is a measure of truth to the fact that, I don't want to say they're undercovered, because but there were reporters. There's no question that there were reporters that went out of their way to insult and revel in their destruction, okay, of those ratings. But part of it also was, they brought it on themselves by coming out there and promising to be something more exciting than the NFL. I mean, that was just a really bad strategic move. And that was what they portrayed themselves as, and that's what they got their first audience as, and that was the standard that they told everyone they were going to be, and that's what they were judged on, and they failed. Okay, so there is, and that's what everybody was, all those stories about how, in the comparison, it's like you're comparing them to the NFL. So they brought a lot of it on themselves, but there were some people who piled on, maybe not. And I know that there's a little game going on. I saw Rome got caught, Jim Rome yesterday. Did a big speech because J.K. McKay was the GM of the LA team. He basically insulted Jim Rome, and then Jim Rome came back and insulted him, and I'm going oh, Jim Rome, you're going to turn into Phil Mushnick, which is you're responding to the insult rather than just sit back and go, the rating for next week is going to be, and this is how much money they're losing, which he actually did say. But as soon as they can drag you into personally, because the WWF is trying a game right now. It's the ECW game. Been through with the TNN thing and everything.
And look what good that did, by the way, I'd like to add.
No, but it rallies. It was a great way of saving face, though. No, it did no good. And this obviously will do no good as well. But
the whole thing was, you got Michael Cole.
Yeah,
has no credibility.
Taz and Michael Cole, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Michael Cole has no credibility. Taz, how can he build credibility as an announcer in 2 weeks or whatever? And that's bad enough as it is. But you don't start a tirade about this like Michael Cole did by starting out by going, I don't even know the exact line, but it was something like, XFL got off to a rocky start, but the last few weeks have been tremendous. And it was like, okay, you just killed yourself right there.
The other thing, too, and then we're going to go right to the thing. The best XFL game wasn't the second week. No, it wasn't last week or the week before. The second week of the XFL was that double overtime. That was a really, really... You could not have had a more exciting football game than the second week. And the rating for the third week went way down after the second week. It's a rejection of the product. And if they think that because these players are gelling, if they're going to fool... I know it's just a party line. The play's better and the players are gel. It's an entertainment thing. It failed. I mean, it'd be great. I hope it makes it. I really do. But, if they have a double overtime game next week and it's really, really exciting, that's not going to turn the thing around. There's a perception that by coming off as crybabies on wrestling, which is, believe me, what they did last night, that's not going to serve their purpose. The only thing it's going to do is it gives them an excuse when they fail. And to me, it's by doing that, it's almost like it's what Paul Heyman did. You know, it's like, I know I'm getting kicked off this station, so I'm going to turn because my ratings are not high enough. So I'm going to turn the station into a heel, and that way when I get kicked off, everyone goes, that heel station, they've been after him for 6 months. And again, not that Paul Heyman doesn't have a very legitimate gripe with TNN, because he does, but that thing, the way that they played that angle, I mean, it was clearly a very calculated thing to save face from day one. I mean, as soon as he did it, we were talking about it on the show. As soon as he started that angle, it was a calculated thing to save face because he knew he was going to lose the network.
And among hardcore ECW fans, it worked.
Yeah, and I think that's what Vince is trying to do is among, it's really going to be hard to save face if this thing fails, but among, with WWF fans, the hardcore Vince's God fans, but among those fans, if he can create an enemy in the media killed this league, and the enemy media, and Phil Mushnick killed this league, that's his way of saving face when the thing inevitably goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a game. Anyway, let's go to the Bob Costas XFL with Vince McMahon.
Here now, Vince McMahon. Thanks for coming, Vince.
Pleasure.
XFL ratings are down 75% from week one. They now rival the lowest ratings ever in prime time, not just for a sports program, but for any television show.
Right.
Can you guarantee me right now that there will be a year two for the XFL?
Can I guarantee you that? I can't guarantee you that I'm going to be breathing in and breathing out after we leave this studio.
But you're pretty sure about that one.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure about the continuation of the XFL in one form or another.
Does that mean on network television and on NBC in year two?
I would like to say so, yes. NBC has been very supportive. I think that the difference here, Bob, is that people have to understand that when you start a league like this, I mean, this is not the easiest thing to do. I mean, let's face it. So when you start a league like this, even though we have many advantages, it's not easy. You make mistakes along the way. You correct your mistakes. You focus. And you go forward in terms of brand building. And this is brand building. This is not just television programming. And that's the thing I think that a lot of people, quite frankly, miss. I mean, it's all about, the 13 weeks and out or less in terms of television programming these days, especially with the attention span of a lot of the programmers on the network. So, I mean, again, I think that once the affiliates understand that this is brand building, I think we're in it for the long run with NBC is certainly my hope, and they've given me every indication that is the case.
It's one thing to try to build a brand on cable or elsewhere, but even on Saturday night, which has not been the best night for the networks in recent years, that airtime is meaningful, it's important, and it can't be sacrificed week after week if some improvement isn't shown. That's just common sense, right? Significant improvement.
Well, certainly I don't think anything could be sacrificed. At the same time, again, I think there has to be a longer range approach, that this is not just programming. We're in it for the long run. I'm very long-range oriented in everything that we do business-wise. So, I mean, I think that once the affiliates catch on to that, and stay with it, I think we have to make a marked improvement in our television ratings. And quite frankly, I'm disappointed in them, no doubt about that. I think that we started out with this huge television rating and dropped off.
Curiosity factor, promos leading up.
I think it's curiosity factor, but I think we made some mistakes as well. I mean,
what were the biggest mistakes, and what can you correct, or is it too late in some cases because people have gone away?
I don't think it's too late. I think that the caliber of the play initially was not as good as it should be. The caliber of play now is fantastic. It's great. It's
the same players by and large. How in the space of a month can the caliber of play improve that much?
It's real easy because, we didn't have the luxury of starting, a 4-week preseason like the NFL normally does. Again, this is a startup league, Bob. You got to give us a little bit of a break here, and the media does as well, because we knew we were going to make mistakes, and we have made them. So had we started up in a longer preseason, then the teams would have been far more cohesive. They would have looked much more like NFL football, although we said all along this is not NFL football. So I think the caliber of the play now is extraordinary. It's exciting. You've got wide open offenses now, and a lot of points are going up on the board. You've got innovations which we have made, and quite frankly, some of the network execs that cover the NFL are already talking about stealing them.
You mean audio and having the cameramen on the field and a different point of view, that sort of thing, different production techniques.
Right. I think actually steal the scramble if they could. That's kind of
instead of the coin toss.
Right. We call it the human coin toss. So the idea here is to start up a league in which players have opportunity, otherwise would not have an opportunity. It's a very family-friendly in terms of ticket prices. You know, we've been averaging some 27,000 people coming to our live events, which I would suggest would rival, if not supersede, what the old AFL did when they first started, and even the NFL. Let's look at this realistically. The NFL has been at this for 75 years. You know, it's not fair, you know, to jump all over us and, okay, when are you guys going to die? Is it over yet? You know, can it please be over yet? You know, 75 years of building a brand. You know, and the NFL is where they are now, more power to them. I think they do some things wrong that we do right. And I think that it's going to take a little time to build our brand. And you can't do it in 1 year's time. It's unrealistic for anyone who wants to partner with us to think that you can build a brand in 1 year.
What about this analysis, which seems pretty much on the money to me? It's not WWF enough for that crowd,
right,
and it's not good enough football for the sports-minded crowd. It's neither fish nor fowl. People took a look, and they split.
I don't think, again, I think that that's not necessarily unfair, what you just said. I think our research indicates that the World Wrestling Federation fan likes his diet of WWF entertainment in its proper form. I think that in terms of a football fan standpoint, they like football. I don't think that they mind any of the rule changes that we've made, any of our brand of football and bringing the game closer to the fan. The in-stadium experience is off the chart when you come to an XFL game. It's off the chart. You're really almost on the field. You feel so close to the play. So these innovations are fantastic. I think that again, the caliber of the play more than anything else, we weren't quite ready to play the kind of ball that we are currently playing. And it's my hope that that the media, which has been, I think, somewhat unfair, in jumping all over us and asking for this damn thing to please go away. I think it's unfair when you consider the caliber of play that we have now. All I'm asking you is just take another look at it now and judge it on its merit or lack of merit as it relates to football.
You came to this with plenty of power, with expertise from a certain area of television and entertainment. Mm-hmm. You came to it with celebrity, but in most people's minds, not with prestige because of the type of programming you're associated with. On the other hand, NBC has prestige. Right. They risk not just dollars, they risked prestige. Do you think, is your sense as you deal with the people at NBC, that they're feeling the heat on that front?
Oh, I think they're feeling the heat. I mean, again, I think that the media made certain that they're feeling the heat. They're asking Ebersol, please get the hell out of this thing, And Dick is a stand-up guy and a friend of mine, as you know, for many, many years. Bob Wright as well. I think that they're in this thing with us, but at the same time, I don't know how much heat they can take, and I don't know what prestige means anymore, because, again, when you think about brand building, I don't think the XFL has hurt NBC in terms of prestige. How? Because they've been associated with me individually, or, the smear, if you would, of World Wrestling Federation Entertainment? I mean, is that it?
I think there's a general perception that while the XFL doesn't go anywhere near where the WWF goes, that it's a low-rent form of television.
Have you seen any of the games? Tell me what is low-rent.
Not so much within the games. The pregame show, especially week one, was one of the most mindless things I've ever seen.
We don't have a pregame show.
Week one, there was a pregame show.
We don't have any pregame shows, which is one of our problems. No, we've never had a pregame show.
What was the pregame show that aired in Los Angeles, in New York, and in other markets a half hour prior to the first game?
A local thing that the NBC O&Os put together, of which we had nothing to do with.
But it left the impression. It left the impression in many quarters that this was a low-rent deal. And I'm sure that NBC is hearing it from affiliates, from station managers, and from some portion of the audience saying not just that we don't like this, so we prefer to watch something else, but that we're offended by this association.
Well, if that's the case, then they have to do what they have to do, and just like you do, Bob, I mean, quite frankly, from my standpoint, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm what makes this company, I'm what makes my company and this country go round and round. I take risk, calculated risk. And quite frankly, if you go back to when we first made this announcement of the XFL, we didn't have any partners. We were going to do it all on our own, okay? So I think it is a viable business I think that that when you come to a live event and you see all these young people in the stands having a wonderful time, I think that our television ratings are going to build back. I think that we may throw a few things in there to get them back in terms of promotions and things of that nature, and we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to spend some money, that we otherwise may not have to spend. We're going to have to convince the media, quite frankly, to cover this for the event that it is, not the perception that you, as an elitist, in my point of view, or others would have about it ain't low-rent football. I'm sorry. It's kids out there playing their hearts out if you watched it.
No one dismisses the players and coaches who are trying to make a living in a football league. No one dismisses that, and there are probably very good stories within that. There is an association, though, that in the minds of some is a plus. That's what brought a lot of that 10 rating the first week. People saying, well, I'll take a look at what Vince McMahon has cooked up, and I saw the promos. There are others who are put off by that. You bring both positives and negatives.
Who's put off? And in what way? What have we done? What have we done in anything with the XFL? What, we have cheerleaders? We said right out front we were going to have cheerleaders, nice-looking ladies that you were going to get to know, unlike the NFL, sort of has them but doesn't have them kind of a thing. If nothing else, we are brutally honest about who we are and what we are presenting. But there isn't one thing in that game that I know of that we've presented that's salacious in any way.
If the ratings don't turn around, will you be tempted to make it more salacious?
No, we just did that. We just did, as a matter of fact, you showed the clip at the top, of some sort of thing whereby we were going to go into the Orlando Rage cheerleaders' locker room.
Right.
Okay? It was a spoof, all right? And
the guy hit his head, couldn't get inside, and
right.
You tried to revive him as he lay there in the court.
Right. And we said it was a blatant attempt to increase television ratings. As promos all week long. That's what we said. And it was, but we were winking at our audience. They understand what we're doing. And I believe it's the quality of the football that's going to bring viewers back.
If you could be guaranteed that it would increase ratings, would you fix the games?
What a ridiculous statement.
It's not a statement, it's a question.
It's a question. I beg your pardon. It's a question. No. It's either football or it's not. Now, if it's entertainment, then no different than I did, a long time ago, when my predecessors tried to pawn off that wrestling was sport years ago. That's absurd.
And you came out and said it's sports entertainment, and the matches are staged.
Right, absolutely. So how could you possibly script a football game? Boy, you're giving me credit for a lot of talent that I don't think I have, okay? You have to catch the ball. You have to run with the ball. You can't script football. And
isn't that really part of the problem? Because there's a whole lot of football on TV. Right. There's the NFL, and it has a long season, and all the college games. Right. And you have the World League in Europe, or the NFL Europe, I guess it's called. And if people just wanted to see football, they could pipe in Canadian Football League games. So if you can't do something significantly different at the edges, what's the real incentive to watch these games?
Well, the real incentive to watch the games is because it's the best football other than NFL you can possibly watch. It's not, European ball. It's not college ball. This is great football. And we didn't show that in our first several weeks. We also had some production problems, things of that nature. We also had the wrong announcers out there. That's part of our problem as well. We've corrected production. We've corrected announcers as we're going forward.
Are WWF announcers the right announcers for football?
No, they're not. No, they're not the right
Will you be able to get top-flight announcers? Because I know within the business, and this is not from people necessarily who wish you ill, but within the business...
Well, I'm sure there's no one who wishes me ill.
Well, I'm sure there are many people who do, but I think some objective people...
And why would they wish me ill?
Tell
me, why did they want to wish me ill?
The show's only an hour long. There are many people, we'll get to it in a minute, who consider what you've done on the WWF, while successful, to be objectionable. We'll get to that in a minute. A lot of first-rate announcers are reluctant to be involved in this type of programming because they feel that it carries a stigma.
Well,
that it's not something that would look good on their resume. On the other hand, some established guys have done it,
right,
but many have backed away or would have no interest. So my question to you is, if you've got to get what you call the right announcers in there, what's your talent pool for that?
We'll have to create talent. Talent's out there. You have to go find it.
You call yourself a risk taker.
Right.
You have been that.
Right.
If this turns out to be a grand-scale failure, what impact will that have on you?
Well, I get knocked on my keister, I dust myself off, and I get back up. What do you mean what impact is it going to have on me? I'm going to do the very best I can every single day. I'm a fighter, okay? I enjoy fighting, by the way. So I like to fight. And I have tremendous confidence that this is going to be a big success. But you can't. No one can expect it to be a success in year one. You have built a brand. I mean, sometimes people think that, I have some degree of talent and whatever. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But Vince McMahon, in conjunction with NBC, can't build a brand in 1 year. You can't do that.
The XFL and the WWF completely separate, or are you so associated in the public's mind with both that a big failure here reduces some of the juice that you have in other areas?
No, not at all. I don't consider, if it were to be a failure, no. I mean, again, this is America. You have the opportunity for failure in America. I'm not afraid to fail, as long as I win in the long run. But I'm not going to fail at this XFL. Despite, and whether or not, people out there like the fact that Vince McMahon in any way is associated with this league, or they don't. I don't know what I've done to offend anyone in the sporting world. I'm in the entertainment world as far as World Wrestling Federation entertainment is concerned. If someone from the sporting world doesn't like the entertainment we produce, change the channel. When you've got Vince McMahon, the founder of the XFL, and I'm out there beating the bushes trying to make this thing work, okay, I'm a different guy than the character that I play on television in World Wrestling Federation entertainment. So hang on a second. Let me make my point. So, therefore, I think that really from a just standpoint, I think the media owes it not to me. They don't owe a damn thing to me, but I think they owe it to the public to take another look at the XFL, to take a look at the caliber of the play, take a look at what they thought maybe it was going to be, but what it truly is today. Talk to our fans and cover it in a way. I mean, when you consider the fact, that in that coveted male demo, we were number 2, I believe, last week, including NBA and everything else. I mean, it's not like we don't have the big gross rating.
It's 18 to 34
right.
males.
We don't have the big gross rating, but the people that are watching us are important people. So, again, we need to build that up. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about that thing before you almost. I thought Vince was much, much better on this one, at least listening to it, than it was yesterday.
Yet.
What?
He hadn't snapped yet.
Yeah, he was much better. And I thought Bob Costas was very, very good on that. What's funny to me is, Costas took a lot of heat for the remarks about the pregame show, and it's like, that pregame show existed. It was on in New York. I never saw it. I heard it was terrible. Many people said it was terrible. It got pulled after about 3 or 4 weeks. Now, Vince McMahon does not deserve the blame for it, but it was the XFL pregame show, and it was on NBC, and and it was garbage. And I shouldn't say it was garbage. I didn't see it. I heard it was garbage. But if he saw it, which clearly he did, and said it was, it's like, granted, Vince, it's not an indictment of Vince, but it is. You're guilt by association to an extent when it's your pregame show.
He wasn't referencing something that never existed, basically.
Yeah, well, the big criticism of Costas was that he brought it up, and that actually it was a pregame show that the stations put together, as opposed to something that Vince put together, because really Vince did have nothing to do with that show. But it does have to do with the XFL. It was the XFL pregame show.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was... I do think, with the one exception that someone brought up on the show yesterday, and that is that he really should have watched at least one full episode of Raw, and to do that. Because, I just think about it. And granted, he's busy and everything like that. I think that is a problem with mainstream media people, in that they think that they don't have to watch wrestling to know wrestling. And so that's a valid criticism, because, someone brought, if I have Jim Cornette on, I end up spending all weekend, watching as many episodes of Ohio Valley, just because I'm interviewing Jim Cornette and I need to know who those guys are. So it's fair. Aside from that, I think that most of the criticism of Costas has been really unfair. I thought, as I said, Vince did a lot better on this stuff. The only thing that
I was shocked. I was unaware that the XFL was number 2 in the 18 to 24 demographic last week.
18 to 34. Okay, you know what that is? That's total. That's that BS manipulation. You know what they do? They take the what they did was, and I'll actually go up during the break. Hopefully, let me write this down. Okay, but what they did was the XFL. You know how they sell their ads as a group, as a network, right? Instead of as individual games. So when you buy it, you get the UPN, and that's why we always talk about the CUME ratings every Monday or Tuesday. Okay, so when you buy it, so what they do is they're selling to advertisers a CUME rating. So what they do is they add up the rating of males 18 to 34 of the Saturday night game and the 2 Sunday games. And that is in comparison to individual sporting events from everybody else. Like if the NBA averaged, or not averaged, it would be if they combined the rating of all of their NBA games that are on all the different networks and local stations and everything during the week, obviously it would kill XFL. But the 3 XFL games combined do beat any individual NFL game. I was not saying NFL, they wouldn't come close to an NFL game, but NBA game or hockey game, anything but NASCAR. The three whatever it is, the 3 XFL games combined do not beat NASCAR's one event. If NASCAR has 2 events, it doesn't beat the individual event, so to speak. It wouldn't beat a good college game. It wouldn't come close with. It won't come close this week because of the NCAA basketball tournament. But that week, yeah, it's true. The 3 games did beat any individual sporting event on its own, except for NASCAR in that demographic. So it's. But, yeah, that's a totally misleading statement, obviously.
I have one question, too, by the way. Vince kept mentioning, in fact, they mentioned it on the show, or on that show, they mentioned it on Raw, SmackDown. Anyway, this whole thing with the media. And I just want to know, if the media took another look, like Vince is asking them to do, what good would come of that?
Yeah, because they come to the same conclusion. It's still minor league football. You know what? They get more coverage.
Well, I'm saying this. Even if the media said, this is the greatest football show we've ever seen, and you should all watch it. Does that necessarily mean absolutely anything?
It means a little bit. It doesn't mean the difference between a 2.4 and a 9.5. It does mean the difference between a 2.4 and a 2.8, maybe. Maybe.
So,
that's why everyone strikes for mainstream media. You know, like with silly wrestling angles to get the attention. It does make a little bit of difference. Not enough well, I don't know. The one other thing, you know, where he kept talking about brand between him and Bischoff. The brand, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm so sick of hearing it because that's what Bischoff with the brand names. It's like we're building a brand. You know what I mean? It's like I don't buy a brand with a negative stigma is being built.
No.
Whether it was WCW, brand name, it has a negative stigma. XFL has a very negative stigma. That's why the ratings drop every week. You know, if Vince's ratings started high, okay, dropped down like we all knew it would. Everyone knew it was going to be what it was the first week. Went down, and then slowly was creeping up. You know what? You say, give it time. But it drops every week. And I'm not saying maybe he'll pull it off. But there's no evidence of it.
Yeah.
Because it's not coming back. And, you know, we'll talk about, like, you know, how great a time people have at the live events. You know, people do. But also, on the same token, the attendance in most markets drops each successive game. So that means that more people are not coming back. More
people aren't coming back, but it just means...
No, it means more people are not coming back than new people are going in.
Yeah.
Okay? But people are not coming... But some people are not coming back, obviously.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's...
I also love the line when Costas asks him, you know, would you ever consider fixing a game? And he was just totally appalled, like, what a ridiculous statement.
Well, you know,
how could anyone possibly think that Vince McMahon would fix anything?
But, you know, the thing on that one also is that there's 2 different words. There's fixing and working. You can't work a football game unless you make it a play of a football game or a movie of a football game. You can fix football games. You know, what you do is you get one team not to win, and you don't even tell the other team, like you fix a boxing match. When you have a fixed boxing match, it's not worked out ahead of time like a professional wrestling match, where, you know, like, oh, I'll do this and you do this and this is our high spot. It's like the guy who's going to lose goes in there and goes, the first time you get hit with a good punch, you lay down. And you can fix a football game by telling the quarterback, your team loses, and he fumbles at a key time, throws a key interception. I'm not saying he would do it, but it can be done. And it's been done. NFL games have been fixed. College games have been fixed. I don't know how, no one knows how regularly, but it can happen. And when there's gambling involved and when you got if you have people in your own organization gambling and you're courting gamblers and the players are not making a lot of money, that increases your odds. You got a quarterback that's making $45,000 a year as a base, as opposed to $1 million whatever in the NFL, and a gambler comes to him with a scheme of, I can give you a $15,000 bonus, you do this, this, and this at a key time. I'm not saying this has happened once, but is it possible? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk more about XFL because what's going on in wrestling is far bigger today. Let's start with Jordan in Toronto. Jordan, what's going on?
Hi there. How's it going?
It's going really good.
Okay. Just about the WCW sale. I keep hearing that Vince is one of the guys looking to buy it. Is that true or not? Or
not buy it, but he's looking to do the angle. He's looking to buy the name. He's not going to buy the company. No, because for the same reason Vince's interest in buying the company was to lock up those time slots so nobody else could get him, and it would give him a monopoly, and it would be a huge barrier of entry for anyone wanting to start up. When the company is not going to guarantee you those time slots, there's nothing to buy worth that much money, and nobody can get it, so there's no point. And he can, he doesn't have to really do anything. If they close down, he'll get all the talent he wants, but he won't be able to do the interpromotional thing without getting sued because he doesn't know the WCW name. He can do like a fake interpromotional thing without mentioning the name, but probably the name, in that regard, that name's probably worth a couple of $1 million if he's going to do the interpromotional thing right using the name. So that's what's of value to him.
Yeah, I was thinking it would be kind of cool if he kept the, did like interpromotional thing, but used WCW as more as a cruiserweight sort of thing. Because that was, when they were strong, that was the thing that kept everyone tuning in with the,
You're talking about the wrong guy.
Yeah.
If it was another guy, if it was another promoter with a different value system, different mindset on what wrestling is, maybe yes, maybe no, but not, he's not keeping them separate, so it's not really, it's not going to happen.
How does the whole trademark thing work? Is it like Time Warner AOL has a trademark on WCW, and even if the company died, they would have it for a specific number of years?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's all I had. I just thought it would be kind of cool.
Just got the Ross report here. A couple of notes I want to mention. Rikishi may be out until after WrestleMania. He may not be ready to come back from a broken eardrum. He's putting over. Mick Foley's doing a Chef Boyardee commercial next week. He says, Kurt Angle is the most talented performer I have ever been around in this business with his experience level. Which actually, you know what?
It's true, probably.
I think all around town. I've seen guys. You know what? I don't know that I've ever seen a worker at 2 years in as good as Kurt Angle. I've seen guys close. I don't know that I've ever seen him quite as good. But if you throw in the interview ability and everything else, acting ability, he may be the most talented that I've ever seen too. Let's see. What does he say? He says David Taylor will not be doing Tough Enough, but he may be on WF television, perhaps with William Regal in some form. Let's see. What else does he talk about? Raven may turn into a fan favorite. Looks like. Okay, then Edge's lower back's almost 100%. They expect him back for tomorrow night's show in Toronto. This is what he says. There's been a lot of, and I would say very applicable. It is. I think it is quite hypocritical of the WWF lawyers telling Jerry Lawler, not to take those email addresses of those people off, and at the same time telling people to do the same thing with sports wrestling. Anyway, this is the Jim Ross response to that. I want to address a few emails I received this week regarding Jerry Lawler and our call to action regarding the XFL. I mentioned last week here I wasn't sure that the King having fans email our writers was a good idea, simply because the writers are not empowered to bring the King and the Cat back to the Federation. They write, but they do not get involved in personnel decisions. Actually, that would be Jim's. Email him, right? Actually, it's Vince. However, the members of the media we asked our fans to contact do make decisions as to what they cover as it relates to the XFL and other sports. They seem to be two separate issues. But it's the same. I mean, I guess they're separate issues in a sense, but, when they're confiscating banners, a company that's confiscating banners pro Jerry Lawler at their television and then telling you, that I don't know. I just find it totally hypocritical. The other aspect is that the XFL actually gets more coverage. If you and granted they draw more people per game, and that's probably why they deserve more coverage in a sense than minor league football or minor league basketball. They get way more than either of those, and that's what this is minor league football. They get great coverage they get tremendous coverage for a minor league sport. They don't get coverage for Major League sport. And the XFL games that I have seen get more coverage than what I would call low-level Division I football that draws anywhere from 7,000 paid to about 30,000 paid, depending on the market. That would be like equivalent to San Jose State, which is where I live. On a national basis, the San Francisco Demons game, I'm sure, gets far more coverage than the San Jose State game. And from an interest level wide, as far as paid attendance, they're roughly at the same level. So they're not being unfairly, it's not unfair at all. This is what he says. The Bob Costas Vince McMahon confrontation on HBO Live will not lead to a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. And he says it was the highest-rated Costas show to date, which it may have been.
I'd rather see Costas in the ring than Linda.
Nah, I don't want to see either of them. And then this is the last one. Let's see what he has to say about this. He goes, it's been a challenging week for yours truly, especially when you read you were one of the XFL's biggest mistakes. Let's see. This is what he says.
And who said that, by the way?
Vince McMahon.
Good old Vince.
The thing is this, those statements certainly sting a little, but they damn sure don't kill you. No, they don't kill you. And it's, you know what? You know, we said it before. That is so unfair to him. I've been criticized my entire adult life, oftentimes by my family, for being in the wrestling business, and I'm still here 20 years later. Words only destroy you if you allow them. I'm proud as hell to be in this business, so my focus is to do my job to the best of my ability and improve with every opportunity. It's that simple. The Federation has been and always will be my top professional priority, and I truly believe my best broadcasts are still to come. As for the XFL, I thoroughly believe in the concept, and I love being part of it and getting to know those passionate players and coaches. My tenure in the XFL may be short-lived. I guess that means he's definitely not coming back next season. But I've got to be honest with you, I'm having a blast doing those games. Last week's game with Dick Butkus was the most fun I've had this season. I'm sure it is, because even though Dick Butkus isn't much of an announcer, if you're Jim Ross's age, I mean, Dick Butkus, working with Dick Butkus for a guy who's a football fan, I got no doubt that was like a thrill, one of the thrills of his life. Let's see, number 51 and I are set to broadcast Saturday night's contest between the New York, New Jersey Hitmen and the Memphis Maniacs at Giant Stadium. It will air in New York and in Memphis. Okay, so there you go. That's what he has to say on that.
I was thinking about the whole invasion angle concept with WWF, and I don't even really know how valuable the WCW name really would be or how important it would be, because, I mean, the whole Hall and Nash thing in 95 or 96 or whatever, I mean, they couldn't say they were WWF guys because of legal issues. I mean, they hinted and everything like that. But the whole thing was fans knew where these guys came from, and they knew what this was supposed to be. I mean, if you all of a sudden had, a group of guys, Goldberg, I hate to say it, but Nash, Steiner, a bunch of guys show up on WCW TV, it wouldn't even matter what they were called or where they said they came from because everybody would know.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway, let's go to Zoe. Zoe, what's up?
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Hey.
We're doing very well.
Okay, number one, on a slight tidbit on the XFL, by being the first season, I am recording all the games, including the pre-shows. And if Vince did not know about the pre-shows, how come part of it was shown at WWF New York restaurant? Anyway.
That was a excellent point there. Because in this market, we didn't get the pre-show, so I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know what?
I think Vince knows about that, the pre-show.
Okay, I think Vince knows about that. You know what? I think that all of those people in the media that criticize Bob Costas for that point now are so full of it. Okay. Let's go.
Thank you very much.
By the way, you better hold on to those tapes. They'll be worth something someday.
Especially Opie and Anthony, because those were the ones that were having a field day with Bob Costas making that mistake. And since they produced the show and they were the on-air talent, or I say they produced it, they were the on-air talent on the show, and they knew that it was coming from WWF New York, they knew that Vince then did obviously have some affiliation with it, didn't he? Okay.
Okay, but my main thing is that I was hearing you guys show about WCW going downhill. Unfortunately, it's sad because there should be some kind of competition going on, but it's not exactly a shock. And when I listened to the show before last, I guess, involving Bischoff being interviewed, it seemed like he was going just to just lay low, but make everything the way it was before. Meaning, he would have all his buddies take care of all the booking and all that, and give all the lower guys hardly anything at all, which means dumb ratings. So I think WCW, it's a shame it's going down the tube. It shouldn't be. I was hoping that Vince might buy it and that he would convince Turner to make it a spin-off, meaning I'm sure Vince, if he has Channel 13 to put WCW on for like maybe a day during the week or whatever, they would be more than glad to do so. Because of these success of SmackDown. But who knows? Maybe that might not happen. But I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping that Paul Heyman could be a spin-off announcer.
The thing is, Vince doesn't want to produce more television. They're at their limit when it comes to the amount of television they can produce a week with money.
They have to replace one of them.
Yeah, I mean they're not going to go and send those guys out on another day on the road and do more television tapings. It would not be, because that would speed the decline of the business due to overexposure of the same product.
Okay. Well, anyway. Okay, well then, and my last thing is that I got the last issue of the Torch. Surprised me. They had this thing on Kevin Nash and Wade Keller jammed Shawn Michaels and them about saying how the Eagles interfere with a backstage locker room and yada yada yada. That was the first comprehensive thing I read about how people actually felt about Shawn Michaels. Shocking, but very interesting to know that. But as for WrestleMania, I hope they do that pre-WrestleMania thing they did before last year. It was nice, and I did record it. And
they're not going to do it. It's not going to be done.
Our cable station here show a repeat, so I'll be seeing a repeat of it again.
Yeah, they're not doing a new one of those.
But it is going to be 4 hours long, though.
4 hours long, yeah, 4 hours of wrestling. I don't think they're going to have a long post-game. I think they're just going to have a lot of matches, and the main events are going to be given like 30 minutes. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 real long matches. The matches that, like if they do an Angle Benoit, they're going to be given time to have a hell of a match. And, obviously Rock and Austin, Helmsley's going to be given a lot of time, and that might be tough, but he will.
Yeah.
And that's
okay. And one last thing is that I was curious one day, and I called the L.A. Times and asked how come they didn't have any wrestling news. The reaction I got. Number one, lady, it's fake, lady. Why do you call asking about some dumb wrestling? It's fake. And I think I would quit my own job if they decided to have wrestling news in the L.A. Times. I mean, this guy went off.
Well, it depends. If you call the sports section, I can understand their thoughts to a degree. If you call the entertainment section, they don't got a leg to stand on.
No, but I did call the
it's very, very popular. It's very popular. If you call the sports, they got a grade out. It's not a sport. Yeah. And it is. That's a valid excuse. I mean,
no basketball player or football player could ever graduate from a wrestling school. They couldn't.
Oh yeah, they could.
The training.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could. And we had Bad News Allen here. Bad News Allen here said that wrestling was a piece of cake next after he did all that judo. I mean, it's not easy, but don't think that like a guy who's obviously if a guy's really, really tall or something, but like, Ron Reese graduated from a wrestling school. He's a terrible wrestler, but he couldn't play in the NBA either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you had Karl Malone. I mean, you saw Karl Malone in that one match. If Karl Malone had the training that an average professional wrestler had with his size and his physique and his charisma, oh, come on. That guy would be a superstar or close to it.
That's true, too. And again, on your comment on Kurt Angle, I am surprised that
Kevin Green's another one.
So sad. That is shocking.
Yeah, Kevin Green's another one. Kevin Green had no formal training. It's better than, a great percentage of the guys that are active today and most of the independent guys.
But Kevin Green also had personality plus.
Kevin Green, I don't think had a great personality, but,
Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay.
Okay, take care. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, you're very welcome. All right, I want to hit some emails here. Sean says, if WCW folds, I think there will sure be a startup promotion that will open up jobs for the business. It will just be there's too much talent out there to not have jobs. Now, whether it's successful is another question. Oh, there will be startups. But I'm afraid, WXO startups, you spend a whole bunch of money, you buy a bunch of TV, and all of a sudden you're out of money in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? I mean, I've seen it one of the things
Urban.
What? Urban, exactly. I mean, I went through this thing with roller derby when I was a kid. And, I mean, when roller derby it's the same exact thing. There were 2 competing organizations. They had this big boom period. Then one of the organizations ran out of money, folded. One company we went through this whole thing. Within a year, the big company that had all the talent for all the political reasons fell apart. I'm not saying WWF's going to fall apart in a year, but WWF will get stale. I don't have any doubt of that in a year, 2 years, whatever. And what happened after that was, there were all these people, all these skaters that were out of work, and people going roller derby was a real big deal 3 years ago. Let's bring it back. And there were, revival attempts after revival attempts after revival attempts. I mean, we just had one, 25 years later. But they never made it, every single one of them. Not to say that wrestling's done for good, because I don't believe that either. It's just not easy. Let's see. There's nothing here. China's going to be on Law tomorrow. Don't think there's anything.
Heard that was a hell of an interview.
He sounded it. If the deal's up, then what's the deal with the wrestler's contract at WCW? I think they're going to find out probably a week from Tuesday. But I think that they're going to be kept under contract at least until they're done negotiating the sale. But the key, unless TBS is going to promise somebody time slots, there's nothing to buy. Buy a whole bunch of $1 million contracts with no TV? Come on. If WCW folds, what happens? Okay, I've got that. Do you think that Fox will be the one to step up and put wrestling on their TV? I don't know. I mean, there's been negotiations with them. They're probably the only hope. But like we saw with ECW, Paul Heyman talked to everyone in the world. He got no deal, and had to fold. And
Eric is a deal maker, though. He has that going for him.
Eric's a better deal maker, but he didn't make this one.
Yeah.
But that was, you're right. Eric is a better deal maker than Paul. He better be good, though, because if it's not Fox, there's pretty much no one else. I mean, E and everybody else, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And I don't think, like a network, I don't even think, I get E. What's that really going to do? Is it really have a,
No. Well, I was just using them as just an example, and they won't do it. They will not take any wrestling programming. Since Wade Keller says Eric Bischoff's talking to Fox. I mean, Eric's been talking. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show. He's been talking to Fox all along consistently because his idea was the promotion versus promotion thing, where he would send Hogan and those guys to Fox, form their own company, and then they would feud with WCW. That was his whole brainchild. So yeah, he's been talking to Fox all along. I don't know where it stands. I mean, if he had Fox locked up, they still might have bought the company. So I don't think you can't buy it without Fox locked up. But if Fox is still locked up, you probably could. And I think that tells me that Fox is. I mean, again, these deals, they're not gonna. You just can't snap your fingers and make these deals. They got to go through person after person. All it takes is one guy in Fox just go. I was actually at the table with this. I can tell you exactly how it goes. We have a very tough advertising time, and this is not the time to try new risky programming. I got that speech about a week ago. Let me see. Are you saying there's no hope? I would not say no hope, but it does not look good. Let's see. It says Jerry Jarrett is interested in buying WCW. For a low price. But what is, as owning it, he's not going to put the kind of money in. That's not even WCW. That's like a USWA. Where do you think wrestling would be today had Vince not bought all the top talent from the territories in the 80s? I know it's pretty much impossible to say, but take a stab at it. There would still be one or two dominant companies because cable changed the whole way the business was. If it was not Vince McMahon doing it, it would have been Vern Gagne or Jim Crockett. It was an inevitability. So I think it would have been, here we are 16 years, 17 years later, it would be the exact same thing. If it was not Vince, what would have happened was Vern would have done it, and Crockett would have done it, and Vince, out of retaliation, would have done it, and Vince was smarter than they were, and Vince would have beat him. So it would have been the same thing. Let's see. Okay. Let me just get one more thing. How ironic is that the very last WCW pay-per-view will be Scott Steiner versus Diamond Dallas Page when these two and their respective ages and real-life personalities so sum up the reason why WCW is done, and how ironic is it that literally, with WrestleMania, the symbolic show of the WWF Empire will also be the first show of the new era of the WWF monopoly. I want to get through a few of these things. Al, real quick, what day is Ken Shamrock scheduled to be on? He was originally scheduled to be on today.
He was supposed to be on today. Tentatively, we have him scheduled for Tuesday, April 10th. That has not been confirmed yet. I'm waiting for Bob Shamrock to get back to me. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem, but then again, you never know.
Yeah. And again, did Eddie talk anything about Ken's match with Igor Vovchanchin as far as if it's going to happen or what the status is?
No, we were actually trying to get a comment from the Lions Den, and again, no comment from them. So.
Okay, because that's definitely something that's up in the air. Let's see.
Just think about that WrestleMania post show only being an hour.
Yeah, I know. Well,
this is going to fly by.
Well, I have to get to bed sometime that night, guys. It's only, 10 o'clock on the West Coast there for you guys when the show's over. It's 1 a.m. over here, so.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but that'll be fun. Yeah, we'll be doing that right after WrestleMania, so right, big 4-hour show. Let's see, what do we got here? Vince absolutely knows about the pregame show. The only time I watched it, Vince McMahon was the guest. One of the opening Anthony guys even said, "I knew we would be working for you someday, Vince."
Oh.
That's it. Oh, what does that say?
Hey, guys, just got an email from Alan Sharp at WCW. And basically, it's an announcement saying, effective Tuesday, March 27th, WCW programming will begin a period of hiatus. During this hiatus, WCW will review its programming plans and determine the course of future WCW-branded entertainment events. More information will be released as it is made available.
Okay. Something we didn't know. Let's see.
Maybe they'll combine the April hiatus with the May hiatus. That'll be the next press release.
This is Garen Shea. I'm really bummed out today, but I have one question. If WCW ceases to exist, how do you think it will affect yourself and other journalists? One would think your job would be much tougher covering only one national promotion. It's going to affect everyone greatly. There's a lot of things. I'll tell you what. The future of the journalism aspect of wrestling that really boomed in the last couple of years, that is going to change greatly because of what's going to be I don't want to say collapse, but the collapse of the web economy. There's going to be great changes in the next year. I don't know exactly what they're going to be. There's going to be a fallout, and it's going to, coverage is going to have to be different. It depends on who starts up and things like that. I mean, but yeah, it's going to be different. I mean, I could tell you that I don't think that Brian and I will have any trouble filling pages. But there, it's a question. Are people going to be interested in all the various smaller wrestling companies and international wrestling companies, or only WWF? And if they're only interested in WWF, it's going to be a challenge. It says, why does Vince McMahon take everything Bob Costa says so personally? If he approaches the debate discussion, not a personal attack, he might have come off better. Sean Robinson says, low rent, blam. Vince begins the descent that carries through the second half of the Costa interview. Vince is like Satan in Paradise Lost, screaming in anger, demanding respect, broiling in egotistical denial. A sad anti-hero whose only grace is his indefeatable will, and even that is misdirected. It's from Mark, who says, the fact the pregame show aired on an NBC affiliate does not vindicate Costas in any way. I am definitely not a supporter or defender of Vince McMahon, but Bob Costas didn't have the savvy to figure out that the pregame show in that area was not a national show or even put together by the XFL in itself, then he has little business on television. I think that when he talked about things that had to do with the XFL and he brought up the pregame show called the XFL pregame show, that has something to do with the XFL. And the fact that it was on in the New York market and the LA market and many of the big markets, the fact, come on.
He didn't claim it was a national pregame show, did he?
What?
He didn't claim it was a national pregame show, did he?
No, he said the pregame show.
He said there was a pregame show and it was horrible. And there was a pregame show and it was horrible.
Yep. And Vince was out there trying to pretend he knew nothing of it when he was a guest on it and they filmed it from WF New York. God, what can I say?
Blow a gasket, come on.
Nah.
I thought that was funny last night. Someone emailed me, and the letter started out with, please don't blow a gasket. And I thought, did I really go that crazy last weekend that people have to start these letters like this now?
You did go, but you know what? The letters on the website last night that you put up, they were even better than the day before.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome letters. There was a letter from the guy from Death Valley Driver.
Yeah,
what an awesome letter.
The last letter and feedback last night. Everyone go up there and read that.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's just like, wow. Like those letters that you were getting like last week, it's like night and day. Let's see.
That guy Mike emailed me. He goes, I thought that, I think he said something like, I thought the first paragraph was good and it all went downhill from there. And I thought, no, it didn't.
This says, Ross knows how smart Triple H is with a statement about the Undertaker-Triple H match saying, quote, if it takes place. Yeah, they're thinking of doing a tag where it would be Undertaker and Kane against Triple H and Big Show. So, yeah. And it says, this from Kenta, who says, are you going to be on Live Audio Wrestling after WrestleMania? No, I'm not. I'm usually on every Sunday after the pay-per-views, but this one I'm going to have to do this show here, so I will not be on Live Audio Wrestling after WrestleMania. Let's see. As a professional designer, Eric and Vince are right on the money that building a brand takes a tremendous amount of time. certainly built on a number of things, but negative press does have a tremendous bearing on a brand and how it's viewed by the public. If the public is constantly exposed to negative press about Vince McMahon and the WWF, the first logical reaction upon hearing that the XFL is a WWF product, is a product of Vince McMahon, will be negative. Let's see. WWF Sunday Night Heat is scheduled to be rerun on MTV 4 hours after the live show this week and next week at least. Do you have a feeling? Do you know why they're doing it? Don't know. Maybe I'll ask.
Because they rerun everything on MTV about 5 million times.
Yes. Interestingly, Vince complains that he's interviewed by people who don't know the wrestling business, but then he won't let anyone who knows the wrestling business interview him. And this from Kyle goes, he's the number 2 promotion now. You know what the number 2 promotion is now is UFC. No question. They sold out the last show. They're the only one left on pay-per-view. They have no television. And they're the number 2 promotion.
WOW sent out a press release recently. I wish I knew where it was.
The WOW press release? They're done too.
Yeah, it was basically, I think it said something basically like, we're going to be running reruns, and
we're going to start running
reruns. Pay for TV. So,
they basically said we're done with, but we're going to start running reruns now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not filming any new shows. Let's see. All right. Anyway, let's go back to the calls. Let's go to Miles in Texas. Miles, what's going on?
Hello?
Yes.
Miles.
All right.
Miles, what's going on?
Yeah, I was just wondering, man, what do you think's going to happen to Goldberg? I mean, are they going to try to use him as a way to sell the company? Or are they going to release him and let him go and do his own thing, or will he just retire?
He's going to be one of the bargaining chips. As long as they're trying to sell it, they won't. He will be the last guy cut. I will tell you that.
Well,
when he's cut, then you know that it won't be sold.
When he's no longer paid, he'll go to the WWF.
Right.
I mean, he could reasonably, be pretty big in the WWF, and if they, but if he's going to be the last one released, he's going to be sitting on the sideline for what, 3 years? He'll be 36 by then.
They're not going to sit there for 3 years waiting to sell this thing. It's going to be 3-4 months, or they're going to throw it. They're not going to be spending all the money on all these big contracts for that long of a period of time without just saying, okay, that's it, it's folding. They're going to do it as long as there's serious negotiations with serious suitors. They'll be willing to spend the money so they can get like a $50 million payoff or a $30 million payoff. But if it's like a $2 or $3 million payoff, I mean, the salaries are almost that much. So it's a business decision when there's no real suitors that are willing to pony up big money for this thing, and there may not be. But when that happens, that's when they will fold the company, and that's when these guys will all be free agents at that point.
Well, if he does go to WWF, I mean, do you think they'd, really push him, or they just use him to put over other guys? I mean, I'm a big Goldberg fan. It's pretty much the only reason I put up with crap from WCW last year.
It's up to
be a star again, because he hadn't even been a main eventer in WCW for 2 years.
It's up to Vince. I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, there's so many reasons that it could go either way. I mean, there's the reason of he's going to have to do jobs and pay his dues and prove himself theory, in which case he'll be dead because it won't work. Or they'll just go in there and go, we've got a chance to make a lot of money. We've got a great angle, sitting in our lap with Bill Goldberg against The Rock or Austin or whomever the top guy is, and we're going to get him ready by steamrolling our guys because that's the big money payoff, and then do it. And they're going to choose one or the other, and it's only Vince is the only one who knows because he's going to make that decision.
Can you explain to me one more thing? I mean, WCW, they've had him for 3 years now, and he's a one-time champion, and he's the last champion they had that drew a dime. I mean, they were in the ratings and they were getting good pay-per-view buy rates back then.
Let me think.
They were.
When he was champion, they were still strong then. You're right.
Yeah,
And so because they still did the match where Nash beat Goldberg was a big pay-per-view success. Yeah,
he got over a 1 on buy rate.
Right at a 1, and and that was the beginning of the end when he lost.
The end was when Hulk Hogan's shoulders hit the mat, the next Nacho, when Nash poked him. That was the end.
Hogan poked Nash, and you're right.
Goldberg, and there was Bam Bam Bigelow.
When Hogan poked Nash and Nash went down, that was the beginning of the end, no question. That was a horrible, horrible business decision on so many levels. They do not understand what wrestling fans want, and they, the people running that company. Okay, I'll tell you this: Brad Siegel and Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff. I personally like Eric Bischoff, but this is the reality. They do deserve this fate of this company because they did not care what the fans wanted or understand. It's a combination. They didn't understand. And I mean, when you're in business, when you're in a business catering to fans, you've got to understand what the fans don't want more than anything. They don't want to be insulted. They don't want a one-finger push and the guy laying down. That's not the right kind of heat, and they didn't get it. So people were throwing things, so they thought, wow, people are throwing things. That's great. It's like
what about some smaller talent? Like, man, I really, there's Lance Storm. I mean, he seems like he could be pretty good in WWF. He can talk, and he can certainly wrestle.
Yeah. Okay, I think Lance Storm will get a chance in the WWF. They'll give him a tryout, and they'll probably sign him up, like Jerry Lynn for $100,000 a year or some number like that, and he'll get a chance to either prove himself or he'll just kind of be there like Raven, and they'll be around and we'll know they're there, but they don't really, I don't know. He'll be there though. I think he'll get a job.
It's a depressing name, but I appreciate y'all taking my call.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay. Yes, it's not good news. Let's go to Chris. Chris, what's up?
Hi, how's it going?
Hey.
It's going good.
I just wanted to say, I was reading the Figure 4 from about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and when Brian was doing this review about the whole Trish Stephanie thing out of the limo, and he said Trish popped out of the limousine like a whack-a-mole, that was just one of the funniest things I've read in a long time. The whack-a-mole thing just kind of threw me off guard, and I just thought it was hilarious. So.
Do you remember the whack-a-mole, Dave?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't remember that?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, well.
I like the carnival, the little things you hit with the big...
The mallet.
Padded mallet, yeah. Anyway, I thought that was funny, so I just wanted, I at least appreciated that. As far as the WCW thing, I was a little confused. You guys are saying that Bischoff's negotiating with Fox and so on. I thought Bischoff was part of the Fusion thing. If the Fusion thing was falling through...
That was all part of... That was some from the very... They've been doing that one from the beginning. The whole idea, if it all worked out, was for Hogan to go on Fox and feud with WCW and do the interpromotional thing. I mean, that was like the pie-in-the-sky idea of turning it around.
Okay,
so Fox was always, that's part of the Fusion thing, yeah. That was what, that's the big payoff that they were hoping for, and it might have worked. But, everything had to fall in place, and it didn't. What can I say? It just, it required a lot of, it's like so much in business. If things go right, and it's so much it's just out of your control. If one guy makes a call, you can be a star, and if one guy makes a different call, then you're not even in business.
So then, let's say Vince goes ahead and buys the WCW name. What does that mean? Then that the company that was formerly WCW still exists, and somebody could pick that up, just have to name it something different, or
no. He wouldn't do it unless the company folds. Or he could buy. I suppose he could buy the company if he wanted to. I don't know why.
That'd be such a waste, though.
Yeah, I don't see that one happening.
Why do that? I mean, basically, it would be the company would fold. He would get the name and buy who he wanted. It was obviously they'll all be free agents. And then anyone else who wanted to start up would just pick up the pieces and whoever's left.
Okay, I will give you a good reason why he might, okay?
Buy the whole company?
Buy the whole company, yeah.
Okay.
Let's just say that a deal, that somehow the Fusion thing comes alive again because they get a guarantee from Fox. Let's say Eric Bischoff gets a guarantee from Fox. Then Fusion, they got their TV now, okay? Because that's the whole thing. Without the TV, it's not worth anything. With TV, it's worth something. And they're about to go on there, and Vince goes, you know what? I may have competition, so I'm going to spend $1 more and buy it to shut it down. Mm-hmm. It might be worth it to him, so he buys his way out of any future fights. Because even if it's not competitive now, I mean, that's like saying in 1993, WCW was not competitive and Vince could have laughed at it, but if he could have bought it then, he would have avoided 1996, 1997, and 1998. And he's not, I'm not saying he would do it, but it's a reason I could come up with.
But doesn't he need the competition? I mean,
if he didn't have 96, 97, 98,
exactly. He beat today? It may not be what it is today. I mean,
yeah, but do you think he wants to relive that either?
He may not want to relive those days, but I think he knows
his goal from day one was to have the whole thing. He finally won after 17 years.
But isn't he smart enough to know that ultimately that's not going to benefit him? I mean,
I don't know. He certainly wasn't with that mindset in the 80s.
Sometimes it's like you think maybe this guy thinks that everything that happened during that period was just Vince. He had some great ideas. He made Steve Austin. Didn't matter what the other guys were doing. It was all him. Without them, he would be where he was today.
The one thing.
But here's the other thing too. If he doesn't have competition, yeah, you're right. But let's look at it a different way from Vince. I don't have competition. All these guys, when their contracts are due, they got no leverage on me to get a $500,000 downside.
Yeah.
They're gonna. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Vince will be so powerful within this industry, if there's no competition, that power may be, worth having that monopoly to him.
But he'll be powerful within the industry, but let's say if the industry does, start to deflate a little bit because of WWE.
But here's the thing. Vince is very, very confident. Vince McMahon does not believe, I don't think for a second Vince McMahon believes that if WCW goes down, that the popularity of his product will go down in 2 years. I mean, and there's no guarantee that it will. I think that there's a good chance it will, but I don't know that, if I'm Vince McMahon, I don't know that Vince McMahon is thinking that way. Vince McMahon may be thinking that, now that there's no horrible brand out there to ruin the stigma of wrestling, and it's all me, and it's all good entertainment on national TV, it's only going to get bigger, and I'm going to have more top stars, and I'm going to make more money than ever. He may be thinking that, and he may be right.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But the other thing, another thing I sort of don't understand about this whole WCW situation is originally when he was looking to buy it, wasn't the holdup that Viacom didn't want him to have the TBS TV and that.
Yes, and there is not, and that would not, without TBS TV, there is no holdup, but without TBS TV. But he didn't really, what Vince wanted? Vince wanted a barrier of entry to somebody else. He doesn't need to buy that barrier of entry because the barrier of entry was if he bought and got on TBS, nobody else could get on TBS, and that's the only other station of comparable size that seemed interested in wrestling since USA clearly is not interested in wrestling anymore. So he doesn't need to buy. He doesn't need to spend a lot of money to buy that barrier of entry if Jamie Kellner has said, TBS and TNT are canceling wrestling.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I wasn't totally clear on the whole TBS television situation because
that's what killed the deal.
Oh, so
the decision was it wouldn't guarantee him the TV, and I think that the decision without that guaranteed TV, what are you buying?
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then, the TBS have they really lost a lot? I mean, because considering even though they've had the lower ratings, aren't WCW programs still fairly, highly rated on TNT and TBS compared to
yes,
other
they are, but
TV?
you've got to remember that you can't. Okay, what you got to remember is that you can't sell advertising on wrestling at the same level of its ratings as any other programming advertising.
Dave there?
Hello?
Okay, I think we lost Dave. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying that we had that discussion once before about how everybody kind of has this stigma about wrestling fans and that the advertisers won't pay the same as they will for dog shows and tennis events, even if the ratings are higher for wrestling. But that it would just seem logical that if they're still drawing in the twos and they have other TV shows drawing in the twos that, but I guess that's the whole explanation there, that they don't look at us fans as being viable.
Well, his whole thing was, if WCW is getting a 2 and another show is getting a 1, there's no point keeping WCW if the advertising that it's bringing in is the same as a show that's doing a 1, and they can just replace it. Especially if it's losing, what was that? Especially if it's losing $60 million,
Yeah, that's true.
No upside whatsoever.
But then, the prospects of, another startup coming along, I don't see it being that great because, even though they lost $60 million, if some guy has a lot of money and is out there looking to start a big promotion, as far as that would provide any kind of competition or potential competition to McMahon, then he would have looked at something like WCW or maybe even ECW just because it was established and there was sort of a blueprint of what to do. If somebody's got a lot of money out there, I think there's a lot of guys out there with a lot of money looking to start a federation from the ground up. Whether they have wrestling knowledge or not. That's why, I think this whole thing is just going to come back to hurt Vince and the wrestling industry and obviously the wrestlers as a whole because, like you said, nobody has any leverage now as far as McMahon goes. Except for the guys that can go to Japan, and that's still not, that viable of an option for a lot of people.
Well, my whole thing with the startup and why I'm worried that there won't be another viable startup is it's really going to come down to two things, and that is the TV slots and somebody that has a lot of money.
Yeah.
The whole thing, I was just looking at WOW, and it's like you have this TV show here with a bunch of women in tight outfits wrestling. This guy's got syndication. He's got a TV show, but he lost $3 million in one quarter or whatever it was, and you would just need so much money to keep this thing going for a period where it could actually be built into something.
Yeah, think about this also with
another billionaire.
Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, the other thing with WOW is that WOW wasn't paying any of the women any big money.
Yeah.
So they didn't even have the big salary concerns, and they weren't, sending people on the road, so they didn't have the big travel expenses. But they still managed to pile up $3 million of debt in a month in 3 months because of just the ungodly cost of doing television.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think a lot of fans don't realize, because, I mean, I was talking to a couple of people, and they were just like, they didn't think it was that big of a deal because, oh, well, there's still XPW and then UPW, but I was like, you know, if anybody was ever going to make that jump.
Those guys.
I'm sorry?
Except for us. Nobody cares about those guys but us.
Oh, no, yeah. That's what I mean. I mean, if any company like that didn't have a lot of money behind it, that even if it was a good product or not, doesn't matter, because if anybody was going to do that, it would have been ECW, and look what happened to them. I mean,
you know, the other thing I want to mention is like, you know, UPW is struggling, and they'll be the first ones to admit it. I mean, we had Rick Bassman on, and with a sellout crowd, they may make 200-300 a show, and you can't count on a sellout every time you go out there, and they only run one show a month. XPW is losing tons and tons of money. So, I mean, it's like, you know, it's kind of it's almost a vanity promotion for guys who want to be in wrestling in a lot of ways. So it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like anyone's making, you know, for a company in the long term to be economically viable, it has to figure out a way to make a profit. And aside from WWF, nobody on a big level has figured out a way to do that. I mean, and the small companies, the only way they do it is through the wrestling. You know, a lot of them make their money through the wrestling school gimmick, and the shows are lost leaders to expose their product to get new kids to sign up for the wrestling school. That's all pro wrestling here. That's how they make their money. This is actually clever, but quite sad. Do you think WCW will have a mock funeral for itself on Monday? This is from GP, who says the end for WCW was when they didn't put Ric Flair over at Super Brawl 99. Remember, it got a bigger buy rate than Austin against McMahon. Actually, it didn't get a bigger buy rate, but it was right neck and neck. I mean, they were close. It was Flair and Hogan and Austin McMahon, and by all rights, Austin McMahon should have gotten a much bigger buy rate because it was the fresh feud and it was a cage match and it was their first meeting, and Flair and Hogan had wrestled a million times, and they actually were like neck and neck, which said that in February of 1999, the companies, you know, that's how close it was, and that's 2 years ago. It's amazing that 2 years ago, now if you put Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan on a buy rate. But anyway, because that angle and Ric Flair as a babyface were hot as hell. Obviously were. That buy rate proves it. You're right. And you can track the decrease in buy rates and ratings after that payoff, and they turned him heel.
But then he ended up winning the title, so...
But it was more nobody wanted Rick
than not winning the title from Hogan.
I think it was. It's not the title. You know what it was? It was the heel turn and the Hogan babyface turn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really, you know, even though the Hogan turn got like a big pop initially because it was, you know, people were waiting for it. In the long run, like the Hogan as a babyface was something people wanted to see for like 2 weeks, and then that was it. And Flair as a heel was something that nobody wanted to see, no matter how good he could play the role.
Just think about the 15 million different examples there are of times when something has gotten a great pop and everyone's just been totally snowed by it. I mean, Sid, we say it all the time about Sid. Here's this big guy. Every time he comes on TV or goes to an arena, the crowds just go crazy initially. But he means nothing. He has horrible matches. He doesn't sell any tickets or, you know, spike pay-per-views. He just means nothing. But they pop big.
Yeah. I know.
God bless Sid, but...
God bless. You know, that's one of the worst things about wrestling is, I mean, you got, you know, when you're booking wrestling, and, you know, very few people do it, when you're booking wrestling, you got to look at the paid attendance, and you got to look at, you know what I mean? You got to look at the real numbers. Yeah, you got to look at the numbers. You can't just look at, oh, you know, this guy gets a big pop, therefore we're going to put him in a main. A big pop and big ratings and big pop and big buy rates, they're not the same thing. I mean, Jimmy Valiant in the Carolinas would get a bigger pop than anyone coming out because he just had a great ring entrance, you know, for that era. You know what I mean? That didn't mean that you could put Jimmy Valiant in a main event and you know, draw bigger than Ric Flair, even if people, you know, if they were both baby faces, they might yell louder for Jimmy Valiant, but he couldn't draw the money Ric Flair could in that era. You know what I'm saying?
The thing that's hard, though, is, like, if you were the guy in charge of booking WCW and you had all those responsibilities, you really wouldn't have time to examine everything as closely as you do. And at the same time,
you could hire
somebody...
You could hire someone to do it.
Yeah, but if you hired someone to do it and you had this person, it's just like the survey that happened when Vince Russo was in charge.
Well, there you're right.
You'd have some guy going, look, this Sid, I mean, you know, he's killing the ratings here. And they go, this guy knows nothing about wrestling. This is not what the fans want. And they just ignore it.
Well, you're right about that, because they did have the survey before they were dead, and the survey told them that they should do exactly the opposite of what they did. So you know what happened? The guy who spent a year on the survey quit the company the next week because they
ignored his results.
They ignored the results. People saying that they didn't want to be insulted. Let's go to Mark in Connecticut. Mark, how you doing?
Hey.
Hey.
Dave, I got quite a few points to make. First of all, great point on your first story today on the website about the cyclical nature of the business and the higher-up execs at Time Warner AOL not even bothering to bring in a wrestling person to examine the history and to advise them of the cyclical nature of the business.
Well, that's what happens. You know, the people who make the big decisions when it comes to wrestling are not wrestling people. They're people who own networks, and they have no wrestling background. They look at, they kind of hear 2 years ago, wow, wrestling's really hot, and now they hear now that wrestling's really sleazy and it's cold, and they don't want to touch it.
That's right. That's what the advent of cable has done. Basically, it's brought in the executive who doesn't have the wrestling background. Second point, I want to clarify something about the contracts. Okay. And I don't usually preach anything as fact, but, take it from me, this is the same way in business or in a sports background. The only way the Time Warner can get out of paying the contracts if they fold the company is if they bankrupt it. Just because they fold the company up, the contracts will still be valid. What they will
I know, you're right about that.
What they will try to do is try to buy out the contracts for 40 cents on the dollar, get the payoff.
Exactly. You're right.
They would be free.
I actually was told that exact same thing.
However, if the guys do not accept the payoff of X amount of cents on the dollar, then they will have to be paid out over the life of the contract. And, well, do you think Time Warner is going to do these guys a favor of pay them the money and let them go work somewhere else? I don't think so.
No, but what they might do is if you get an offer, they'll allow you to, the difference.
That's right.
That way they don't have to pay all that money.
But let's keep this in mind. I mean, WCW is just a small victim in this slash and burn mentality of AOL Time Warner right now. AOL Time Warner, and I didn't realize they acquired the Braves as part of the Turner Enterprise acquisition, but they just told the Braves organization to slash 10 scouts and 5 advanced coaches in the scouting department, which tells you, with the Braves doing what they do and that being a necessity of running a baseball operation, it goes to show you just how far down the food chain WCW was. It's almost
there's the other thing when you're talking about that. It's like, okay, so they're basically mortgaging the future of the Braves.
That's basically it. That's right.
Yeah.
They figure one scout can handle a 2,000-mile area or a 1,500-mile area as opposed to, having 2 guys work 700 miles apiece. Next point I want to make is about the Costas interview Thursday night. You know what really struck me as odd? Bob was a big wrestling supporter, not just a fan and supporter. He used to call matches on the radio in St. Louis, did he not?
Yes, yes, he did. Bob Costas grew up as a wrestling fan.
That's right.
He was the one. In fact, my first interaction with Bob Costas in 1984 was when he did a wrestling special on the boom of wrestling in that year, and one of the things was, there was a lot of positive and negative, and when we would talk, one of the reasons why I had less input in that special was because he did not want to look at anything negative. And that's why I didn't like his special.
That's right.
Was he would only look at the positive because he just thought that this was not a product that you take seriously. It was just fun. And then what happened was it was the Persian Gulf War angle, and he was supposed to be in that WrestleMania as a matter of fact.
That's right. He was supposed to do the thing with Steinbrenner.
That's right. He was supposed to be at WrestleMania in '91, and with the Persian Gulf War angle, all of a sudden it was like, wow, this is not harmless entertainment. They're exploiting, they were exploiting the troops and things like that with what Hogan did and everything. And it was just like, it left a bad taste in his mouth, and he pulled out.
That's right.
And he's not been a wrestling fan since.
And the part of the reason that Bob is so passionate about his sports journalism is, remember, he's had an ongoing war with the owners of most of the major American sports for the last 15 or 20 years, with good reason. But I mean, I think he takes more of a, it's become a little bit of a personal vendetta, just trying to shout loud enough to be heard, which I don't think is ever going to happen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just want to touch on 1 or 2 more points. Dave, a personal request, and I think it would be apropos considering what happened today. I sent you an email a while back. I'd like to listen to the show you did from Long Island in February of last year, the WCW remote. I think, is there any way to get that up on the archives? I think in light of what happened with WCW, it might be an interesting listen.
Ask Al.
Actually, that won't happen anytime in the near future. That's probably filed away somewhere, but send the request again to Dave Meltzer at IATA.com. I'll see what we can do.
Okay. And my very last point, you made the point about you guys as wrestling journalists going to have a tough time of it. I think the one that's going to hurt the most is not so much you or Brian. It's going to be Wade Keller, because Wade dropped his international coverage about 4 years ago to concentrate on what he thought his readership wanted was the American market, and now he's going to have to put out 12 pages of WWF product, which is going to be very tough for him to do. Any thoughts?
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Did we lose Dave again?
I think we lost him again.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
I'm back right now.
Okay. I mean, the whole
Go
thing
ahead.
for me is I was doing 4 pages at just U.S. like 3 months ago. And I had WWF, WCW, ECW, and just like out of the blue, I decided to go back to 12 again and cover everything, and then all of a sudden, everything happened.
It's going to be very tough for Keller to do that. And I think, I respect his reason for not doing the international coverage anymore.
Oh, I understand his reasons. I mean, I do international, and Brian does too, because we have a real passion for the business. I'm not saying he doesn't, but it's just something
more
like
McDonald's
I do
type, yeah.
You know what it is? It's like, to me, one of the reasons why I probably have always covered Japan is because I learned so much about wrestling from Japan. The first time I went there, which is, I was told by Bruiser Brody and by Terry Funk, you want to learn about the business and where the business is going to be ahead of time. You watch everybody and you learn from everybody. You know what I mean? You don't just sit and watch one company, because then you won't have any perspective. And I think that was probably like the best advice anyone ever gave me for covering wrestling. And I've always stuck to it. That's why I try on Tuesday night, which is the worst night for me, to watch a little bit of the Mexican. I try to be, somewhat fluent on all styles, because you never know where the next phenom is coming. You never know which promoter is going to have a really good idea. And if you like a Russo, and you close your mind to every form but what you know, and then it doesn't work. What do you do?
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, I'll let you guys wrap it up. Great show again, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care now.
Okay, thanks very much. Al, should we take one more caller, or do we got to go? Okay, I want to thank everyone for joining in today. I wish that we had a lot more time, and we'll be back. I want to thank Al and Brian for all their help this week, and hope you guys all have a good weekend. We'll watch the last WCW pay-per-view, and we'll be talking about that on Monday, and I'm sure we will have tons of more news to talk about. I'm sure we'll be talking to pretty much everyone in WCW in the next couple of days, and maybe we'll see how it goes for what looks like the final week of World Championship Wrestling, the next 9 or 10 days. Anyway, we'll be back Monday at 5.